I am mining investor and editor of Resource Stock Digest, Gerardo Del Real, here with my partner, Mr. Nick Hodge, who's also an investor and the publisher of Daily Profit Cycle. This is the 218th episode of our weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World, where we talk about the markets, we talk about what we're investing in, we talk about the things we're watching. And Nick, first and foremost, how are you? There's a lot of bizarre going around. How are things going in your neck of the woods?
I don't know why you asked me that question, Jordan. You're a very nasty person. I'm doing great. How are you?
I've never heard of you. I've never heard of you. Never heard of you. Everybody keeps telling me, Nick Hodge, your business partner, your friend, your colleague. I say, Nick Hodge, who? Never heard of him. I am well, busy as you are, amused as you are, not amused at other things. Let's get right into it. We're going to try to make this week a short one, coming off of Mother's Day by the time y'all see and hear this. And so let's just get right into the markets. Everything keeps kind of happening the way that we've been calling it. And I hate to pound our chest on it, but look, we said lithium was close to bottoming a month ago. Lithium, to me, looks like it's absolutely bottomed. We've had 4 straight days of the spot price recovering and finally turning around. Not a coincidence, I don't think, that we have some M&A, big M&A, Livent and Alchem, $10 billion merger. That's put, quite a rocket pack on a lot of the lithium stocks, including Patriot Battery Metals, which has, assays that are pending and overdue, frankly, which probably for a good reason, as we've talked about before. But let's start with lithium before we get into the overall markets. I'd love to get your thoughts on the M&A out there. I'd love to get your thoughts about whether you believe it's bottomed. And, judging by the equities, it looks like a bottom's been put in.
You had a 60% retracement in that spot of lithium, the spot price of lithium from late last year until this year. It went from $80,000 a ton in China, of course, for lithium carbonate to just below 30,000. Well, I think we mentioned last week it was we had our first up week since November in the price, and so certainly looks like it's trying to put in a bottom if it hasn't already. There was froth in the market, right? You get a pegmatite, you get a pegmatite. Everybody had a pegmatite for a while there, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not they contain lithium, and so companies like Tierlock, for example, that are now trading at 20 cents that were had dollar handles or more on them recently. That some of that froth needed to come out of the market because it was very bubble like. It's like all these battery metals like copper or even uranium to some extent. They had good runs, and then, things don't go to the sky, as I always say. So lithium was definitely due for a pullback. The merger is very interesting. I'm a legacy Alchem shareholder. First Advantage, and then Orocobre, and then Orocobre merged with Galaxy, and then now Alchem is merging with Livent to create what's going to be like the 4th or 5th largest producer of lithium in the world. They're going to be up there with Albemarle and SQM and then past some of these Chinese entities. And that's all Western production, right? That's Argentina, Canada, and Australia. And so needed in the space if the West is ever going to compete with China and or wean itself off of the Chinese lithium. And so the market really liked it. I think Alchem was at like $12 before the deal was announced and went to 14. And seems to be a good deal for both parties. They'll keep their NYSE listing. They'll use Livent's processing know-how, Alchem's mining know-how, and leverage, as it were, the customer relationships that Livent already has with automakers. So a good deal, and like you say, it lit the fire underneath the rest of the lithium equities. We were looking at Patriot Battery Metals at $12 or $13 a week or so ago, and it went over 15 on the news without news of its own, and so lifting the entire sector. Time frame is important, right? Just like copper is soft, and I've been saying it's going to be soft. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be very strong in the next 3 to 5 year time frame. I saw a Goldman Sachs quote the other day that was alluding to $50 to $100 a pound copper. I had to check the math, and that's what the math came out to. They were quoting it in ton prices, but it's like, wow. And so
you know how I
anyway,
feel about Goldman and their forecast, but they probably got a big short position right now. But I do agree with you on copper's midterm fundamentals, absolutely rock solid.
yeah. And so, I mean, I don't have much more to add there. I told you the other week I was buying Albemarle on the back of Chile's announcement, and that's turned out to be the right move, at least in the short term. And so I'm definitely a long-term lithium bull and think that this pullback we had was an opportunity, just like the pullback we had in uranium was an opportunity. And granted, those stocks got whacked 9 or 10% today, the energy fuels of the world, but they're still higher than they were a month or two ago.
Absolutely. And the pullback in gold, which, again, we were on, months ago saying that technicals looked absolutely fantastic. Let me segue real quick into Patriot Battery Metals. We're overdue for assays. I don't want to sound like a broken record and tell you it's because they're likely having to reassay, a lot of holes for being over limit. I suspect that's going to happen. I also suspect that within the next 45 days, we see one, if not two majors come in and take a minority stake in the company. I think this merger that we just had, which is, a $10 billion merger, is the canary in the coal mine on what's to come. I think North America and North American deposits are going to be commanding a significant premium because of some of the tax benefits that come along with having infrastructure and production in North America. So there's a lot there that bodes really well for Patriot. I do believe that the next big catalyst, independent of assays and that maiden resource estimate, is going to be a major or two, which I know they're interested, coming in and saying, yeah, we'll take 4% or 5%. And it wouldn't surprise me if two majors came to the table and said, we'll take 4% and 5% as well. And look, if that money is raised at a premium and it's flow through, the company doesn't need it. But I think that would give a strong signal to the market that regardless of the chatter around the maiden resource estimate, the chatter about the delays in the assays, that this is eventually going to get taken out. And I think, I'm hoping it makes it out of 2023 for tax reasons, right? I'm hoping it at the very least happens in 2024. I'm not rooting for a takeout this year, but it wouldn't surprise me if it happened towards the end of the year. But first things first, let's see if I'm correct in the next 30 to 45 days. It'll be interesting to see. I think it'll be good for the stock. I see new all-time highs coming again, by the way.
Well, it would take months for a deal to close, and if it's an all-share deal, you could delay selling. And
let's hope it's not in the works, Nick.
Right. Can I play devil's advocate for a second?
Absolutely. I love it when you play devil's advocate.
What about this? I haven't seen it. I need to watch it. The 60 Minutes thing that was out this past week was about this big brine deposit in California that people have been talking about for a little while now, that some billionaires are invested in, and they say that that combined with the, always a black box technology, right? Direct lithium extraction or getting it from, oil and gas wells, right, is going to make the supply deficits not as intense as currently forecasted.
I haven't dug enough into the technology, and I'm definitely not an expert in that aspect of it. There is a gentleman that I'm reaching out to that consults actually for a company that I'm invested in, that we're invested in actually, and then he's got hundreds of patents for lithium clay deposit extraction, brine extraction. He's got, I think, like 125 patents or something like that right now filed. So let me give you a more educated response when I get an educated response from him, so I don't just blabber on and give you my 2 cents when my 2 cents probably isn't worth the 2 cents that you'd be getting from me. So yeah, I'll follow back up. I think that's an excellent point to touch on here, and then we'll see if I don't have an answer for you next week on just how feasible it is, and then how much the technology really can actually achieve.
And then what about the actual adoption? So 2 things. Frank Curzio, he was tweeting the other day that all these car companies are losing money on the electric vehicles. Ford's losing money, other companies are losing money, and it's not being made up by the tax incentives. And so that these automakers are going to abandon the sector, abandon the electric vehicles. That, combined with them not being adopted as fast as once thought, or that some of these forecasts say, like I was looking, I saw Polestar, which is an electric car company. It was delaying for a year the release of some electric sedan that they were working on, for example, and was going to lay off 10% of their staff. Where does that factor in?
I get Frank's point. It's a valid point. I don't think adoption is going to be as simple as, either political party would have you believe, but EVs aside, grid energy storage is a huge part of this, right? Infrastructure is a huge part of this. And so when we talk about, as you call it, the electrification of everything, it doesn't solely rely on the electric vehicle aspect of it, though clearly that is, the elephant in the room. Look, timeline, right? You mentioned timeline. At the end of the day, will there be a time where there's more supply than demand? Absolutely. Is that time right now? No. All these gigafactories and these, $15-20 billion investments that all these automakers are making, those aren't going to get put back in the box. I don't believe that anyhow. They will find a way to get costs down and deliver a profitable product to the market, because it's clear to me that all of the major automakers are committed to this moving forward. So we'll see. You can't make up losses on volume, right? As Rick Roll likes to say. We'll see how long they're willing to have that aspect of their business as a loss leader, and we'll see how well that pays off. It's a lot of we'll see, and there's a lot of money to be made between now and we'll see, right? And so, I think the writing will be on the wall when that day comes, and then, it's not the time right now. I think there's still a lot of money to be made with the Patriot Battery Metals of the world. If you want to take a smaller name, Q2 Metals is a company I'm uber excited about, for the simple fact that they're finally going to get on site here over the next month, start exploration, and kick off a 10,000-meter drilling program towards the end of the summer, early fall, to see what that property has. And so, no, look, it's still an exciting time in the sector, and I think it's going to be a super profitable rest of the year in the lithium space for us. We'll see what happens in a couple of years' time. Not worried about it right now.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what that gentleman has to say. But for the record, I'm obviously bullish on lithium and known several names in the space, including the two you were just mentioning, including Albemarle, including Alchem. And, they didn't say what it was going to be called. I found that curious. They were calling it Nuco. I wonder if what it's going to be called. But anyway.
Yeah, I wonder if that's, the last chip to fall. Once you start seeing that kind of M&A, boards start feeling pressure to go and make accretive mergers or accretive acquisitions. And the last thing that you want is to be the last CEO or board of directors to the M&A party, and all of a sudden, your market share is declining. So when I start seeing M&A to the tune of $10 billion plus, I'm inclined to believe there's no way this is the last deal that happens this year. And I wouldn't want to be the CEO that didn't do anything at the bottom of the lithium sector.
Tell Blair to get his shoe ready.
I love it. We have to talk gold. Gold looks really solid still, pulled back to 2015, firmly above, the 2000 mark. Silver less so. Silver's back with a 24 handle. It's trading like a base metal again. I want to get your thoughts on silver.
I bought silver today.
Okay. Now, there you go, folks. Keep it short and simple. So you think this pullback's a good opportunity?
Yeah. I think you got to buy the pullbacks in the precious metals complex now. I've been saying that for a couple of weeks.
Yep.
And this was a pullback in the precious metals complex, albeit on the silver side of it. So I took the opportunity to buy some, paper physical, as it were.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's an opportunity. And I think gold is really strong. And I think that this dollar index is getting dangerously close to breaking down through 100 on the DXY, and that any change of posture from the Fed, whether it's an extended pause, a cut later this fall,
a sigh of relief, a pivot, a tap dance, whatever they want to call it, a skip,
right? A return to easing, because remember they're still tightening as well. Coupled with this debt ceiling stuff, I think it's all like a lot of tailwinds for precious metals. And I think you should be buying the dips.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you 100%. I'll say the same thing about copper. Overall markets, I know the answer is why I'm smiling. I know what you're going to say.
Copper names actually sold off a bit. They're starting to get more attractive, especially if you take a long enough time horizon, or you you think about owning them for a couple of years. Like today was a weird day in the market, and we record this on Thursdays, so it's May 11th. Like the Dow was down a couple of 100 points, with the NASDAQ was up, and the S&P was sort of all over the place, but the VIX was actually down. I actually have lots of volatility today. Didn't make sense to me. And then some of these more high-flying copper names, Filos, Amerigos, they were getting whacked pretty good.
Yep.
And there's opportunity there now, and certainly if that continues. And then at the same time, I'm always looking at stocks, obviously, like you are. I was looking at like Southern Copper has held up really well. Foran, I don't know if you've looked at that, has held up really well. There's another one that's held up really well. Arrow has held up really, really well. And so some of these haven't sold off yet, but the ones that I was just mentioning, like the Filos and the Amerigos, which I don't cover in any of the letters, I just sort of have small positions and watch out of the corner of my eye to see when there is going to be a potential entry for subscribers. It's getting close on some of them.
I couldn't agree more. I got to mention Aldebaran. I think that, they just reported a 769-meter intercept of 0.55% copper equivalent. And it's clear to me from the news release, from the geos, from John's comments in that release, that they now believe that, Altar East and West.
The blobs are connected.
The blobs are connected. It's like Patreon, right? It's one big blob. They have a name for it. Altar United. So once you start putting a name to something, I think geologically they have confirmation that this is one massive system. And yes, it is, there's portions of it that are still lower grade. There's other portions, of course, that are higher grade. It's a massive copper gold resource. The company's pulled back on the exercising of some warrants at around the 75 cent level. Don't think it's a coincidence that that's where it's trading. You match that up with weakness in the copper space, and then you can see the softening of the price. I think it's an excellent entry point for anyone that has, a timeline of 9 to 18 months and, that's willing to wait for the eventual buyout. They're drilling aggressively. These are deep holes. It's a big project, but everything that they were hoping to see from these holes, they're getting it thus far. So excited about Aldebaran.
Me too.
Overall markets, credit default swap chances, keep going the way that you said they were going to go, right? Higher and higher and higher. And so this debt ceiling, there was a meeting between Republicans and the Biden administration. They both basically came out of that meeting and said, we didn't get shit done on this one. So they didn't move the stick at all. So we're going to go back to our base and tell them what we're going to tell them. The other guy's going to go back to his base and tell them what they want to hear. It's getting really interesting, Nick.
It's getting close. The Treasury is going to be below their thresholds that they want to be below by the end of this month, I'm pretty sure. And so Miss Yellen's going to be yelling. CDS is going up on both the 1 year and the 5 year. People say the 5 year is more indicative of the chance for default, and the chance at this point is not zero. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
So you're saying there's a chance. I think the CDS on the 5 years is up somewhere in the 60s, and so those are basis points. What that means is, if it's the CDS for the 5 years at 60, that means it takes $6,000 to insure $1 million worth of bonds or whatever. And then just to put that in context, it was below 1,000 last year. So the CDS is really up there. It's at the level it was in 2008. And if you look at the last time there were serious debt ceiling fights, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, it was 2011 that volatility spiked, and then there was a pretty steep sell-off in the S&P. Like, all this stuff is coming to fruition. We had GDP a week or two ago, and the economy is slowing. Earnings growth continues to be negative, both on the S&P and the NASDAQ. And the S&P, by the way, is being propped up essentially by Microsoft and Apple, which are like
the bulk
7.
of the index.
Yeah, right, for like the most they've ever been. And so at the same time, I'm not talking just about, the debt ceiling now, but like all this stuff is happening. There's still trouble with the banks. Like they're not improving. If you look at the regional bank index, and the next thing that people are going to start talking more and more about is the commercial real estate, right? The loans that these banks hold where the capacity of these buildings is not 100% because people are still working at home, and so companies either aren't going to renew their leases, or the people that hold those loans aren't going to be able to pay the note, especially if they were adjustable rate. So lots of shoes still to drop in the broader markets, and I've had conviction all year long that we were still in a bear market, and I'm convinced we still are.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking at the headlines now. PacWest shares just went down 20%. On news that deposits fell 9.5% just last week, right? And so when you're talking an almost 10% drop in deposits, even retail is starting to realize that all is not well behind the curtain. So no, I think that'll be definitely something to keep an eye on. And again, for those of you that have, whether it's Dow exposure or NASDAQ exposure, any major indices exposure here in the U.S., I'd be cautious. I would definitely be holding some cash. And fortune favors the bold, but there's a time to be bold and there's a time to be cautious. And I think this is a good time to exercise caution if you're dabbling in that space. I personally don't have anything in the major indices, but many do. I have friends and family that, have 401ks or self-managed funds or family offices that have, quite a bit of capital allocated. So that would be my advice.
I think people are holding cash, maybe not as much as they should be, but increasingly people are figuring out the money market's yielding 5%. And so that's one of the reasons that those bank deposits are going down. Like I've even found myself in the past couple of weeks buying Schwab money market funds, right? Because it's a unit, essentially. I mean, you buy it at $1, you sell it at $1, and you reap the interest. And so it's low to no risk, and that's why people aren't keeping their money in the bank anymore, getting 0.5% or 0.7% when they can get 4.7 to 5% in a low risk money market fund. And man, that's sort of the way we are. Agreed.
We got to get some social commentary in, because there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. Jamie Dimon is very sad, is what he said. He's sad about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. I'll just leave that alone before I get on a rant and a rave. Mr. Trump.
Somebody's buying his island. Some other billionaire is buying the pedophile line.
Yeah. Mr. Trump was found. He wasn't convicted, by the way. I see a lot of stuff on Twitter, and he wasn't convicted, but he was found in a civil lawsuit, was found liable. You got it for assault, sexual abuse, forcing himself on her, touching her in unwanted ways, a number of just nasty predator like allegations. And whether you believe it or not, there was a jury of, I believe, 8 men and 4 women that believed it, and told him he's going to have to cough up, something like $5 million. And then he goes on the CNN town hall.
Sure, he'll pay for it from the skip.
That's where I was going with this. And you would have thought this guy, stopped a school shooting, or you would have thought like he stopped, a mass shooting, which we've had a bunch here in Texas recently. Don't get me going on that again, where we can't even pass a law to increase the age to buy an assault rifle here to 21. That just failed. I'm here in Texas. But anyhow, back to Trump. The way he was greeted, I think, just solidified to me what we've been saying, that he can do whatever he wants, say whatever he wants. It could be the most egregious, nasty, since he likes to use that word, thing, and then come out and just tell you straight to your face that what you see is wrong and what you hear is wrong. And that he's never even met this woman, is what he said. And people will believe it. People will believe it. He had that famous quote during his campaign where he said, "I think I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan and I could get away with it." And look, like you said, he's probably going to be able to, the $5 million is going to be chump change compared to what he's going to be able to raise through his campaign as a result of this. Think about how sick our politics are right now, Nick, that actually being found liable for sexual abuse of a woman is now a point from which you can raise way more money than what you're liable for to the victim. That's insane to me. That's insane to me. George Santos, the cross-dressing, and no gripes, by the way, with the cross-dressing. You do you, boo. But at least be honest about it, right? The senator out of New York, or a politician out of New York, he was just indicted on everything from like money laundering, wire fraud. He was using, kind of funny. He was funny, not funny, I guess. He was using campaign donations and nonprofit money from a foundation to buy like designer clothes and just all. And this guy comes right out and he says, "I'm not resigning. We're going to fight the good fight." And even some Republicans were like, "What are you talking about? Like, did you read the charges? Do you see the evidence presented against you? Like, you're done. It's a wrap." He's out of here. I don't think the Trumpster's out of here because he's got a cult-like following. Santos is out of here. He's gone. I don't think he realizes yet, but he's gonna learn. And yeah, he likes to throw up a lot of dog whistling signs, and he's gonna find the opportunity for that in prison, I believe. See how that plays.
Not much to add. You know me. I've seen the hot takes, and I've seen some of the clips from that Trump town hall. And it's amazing to me how, and he was saying in the same breath, he's never met her, and then went on to describe when he met her and at this party, and how she was like trying to force him into a changing stall to do, I think he was saying some hanky-panky or get all handsy or something like that. I mean, it's just amazing that's the discourse that we're having with presidential candidates. And so I just can't. And the other thing, and I know you want to say something, is to for most intents and purposes, don't care. Like, and the people that do care, I wonder what they get from it, right? Like, what has Trump or Biden or any other president, for that matter, ever really done for you? Like, I realized long ago, like after, I had my moment in my 20s where, I think a lot of people do, where they think they're going to change or save the world. And then you realize that it doesn't happen. That was like Obama's second term for, we'll shoot the thing. That was like Obama's second term for me. And I was like, wait a minute, this is all just some bullshit, right? And so it's amazing to me that people just don't realize how much bullshit it is. And that, that man, neither men, the women aren't in it for you.
They're not. And I'll say this, where I care the care doesn't come from the political aspect of it. It comes from what I see as a breakdown of society and values. The right talks about values so often, right? And then they pride themselves as like the party of like family values, is the way that it's sold to their base. And then you have a guy, and this is the quote, this is the exact quote. He's at the town hall. They bring up, the story about her allegation that he raped her. He says, this is a fake story, made up story. He says, I have no idea who the hell she is. She's a whack job. The very next quote is, what kind of a woman meets somebody and brings them up, and within minutes you're playing hanky-panky in a dressing room? And that got laughter and applause from the audience. And so I could care less about the politics. You know me, Nick. I'm politically agnostic. There's a couple of politicians I like. I don't like either party. But it worries me that we're so desensitized to this stuff, that's just, a rape allegation and him being liable for it in court gets laughter and applause for people. It's beyond, I guess, my ethics or my moral compass to process that in a way that can just walk away without saying anything.
And I think that's why a lot of people are jaded.
Yeah.
I mean, back to the debt ceiling fight, like, and they're going to make a big dog and pony show about it instead of, getting in there and doing their actual jobs. It's all about, hand waving and pulling the strings behind the curtain, and then not really about governing and doing what's best for your constituents. And it hasn't been in a long time. And it really won't be until we can get this class of politicians out of there. And who knows how long that's going to take. I saw Miss Feinstein getting wheeled back in. I mean, these folks are 90 years old. They're going to have to give it up.
Yeah, there was a Weekend at Bernie's meme going around that had me in stitches. And I wish everybody all the best. Reciprocity in their life, but she didn't look too good. And she sure the hell isn't fit to be passing laws right now. And, legislating when you can barely speak, right? When you can barely be coherent. There's a lot of that going around. Odd times. I got to ask you, Nick, I'm not a crypto guy. What the fuck is a Pepe?
Oh, well, Pepe the Frog is a conservative meme. I'm sure you've seen that over the years going around on Twitter and things. The coin got made and went up. And last thing I read was it was up like 2,500%. I'm not sure if it's still going up or not, but yeah, meme coins are still a thing. And that to me, you know, along with, you know, short dated calls on Tesla and YOLO and this sort of stuff tells me that, you know, this bubble hasn't deflated enough yet. Not enough people have lost enough money for true capitulation. If people are still willing to go in there and chase Pepe the Frog meme coins. And so at the same time, it's interesting to me that crypto hasn't really been able to catch a bid alongside gold. And I've been reading Lynn Alden on this, and you know, she's talking about the liquidity, right? How the Bitcoin correlates more with liquidity, which has been coming out of the system. We know that M2 has been going down. We know that the Fed has been tightening, and she argues that this debt ceiling is going to further take liquidity out of the system. And it's a bit above my pay grade, but it's about how the Treasury has to refill their coffers, and it takes banking reserves out of things that are already sort of a little bit shaky. And so Bitcoin, I haven't looked today, but what's is it, 28 grand? What's that? It's down to 26.9.
Yeah,
so
26.9.
Look at that, down in a month from over 30 to 26,000 handle. At that time that gold has gone to hit intraday record highs. And so it shows me what the true safe haven is. And next year we'll get the halving. So I think by the middle of next year we'll be talking about Bitcoin more positively. But for now it's still the precious metals that are the safe haven. And again, don't go chasing Pepe the Frog meme coins. It's crazy stuff, man. And orchestrated too, like you know, these folks who put these coins out, it's still the Wild West. Like we're still having debates about the SEC or, you know, the CFTC and who controls what and what's a commodity and what's a security. And there's just not a lot of protection out there. I mean, shit, your money in the bank is risky enough right now, right? I mean, this is we've seen in the past couple of months. So I continue to be just a Bitcoin guy.
What are we watching in the market? We talked copper opportunities. We talked gold opportunities. We talked uranium opportunities. I'm waiting, of course, for Patriot assays. Waiting for the next shoe to drop there. What are you watching, Nick?
It's the debt ceiling for me.
Yep.
I want to see how much progress they make on that, what the date is going to be ultimately, where we got to get something done by, and what that brings into the market. I'm watching volatility, which just can't get itself up off the floor.
Yep.
And is gonna have to here in the near future, I think. So those are the two things I'm watching for.
I like it. Let's end this on a positive note. I want to say, you know, congrats to all the moms out there. I hope you all had a phenomenal Mother's Day. By the time everybody watches this, it wouldn't have passed. But I hope that if you're lucky enough to have yours around, that you celebrated her. And if you're lucky enough to have an amazing woman next to you like I do and my wife, that's just a phenomenal mother to our kids, that you had an opportunity to celebrate them. And got to give Robert De Niro a shout out. This man gives me hope, right? He's 79 years old. He just had another child. Congrats to Mr. De Niro. I salute you, sir. One of my favorite all-time actors. 79. I mean, gotta give it up to the Raging Bull there.
Sure, up for office.
You might be too young. I'm supposed to remind you to check us out at dailyprofitcycle.com/subscribe, where you can comment on my rants, my raves, my hair, our stock picks, and all things market commentary or otherwise. I am Gerardo Del Real, along with Mr. Nick Hodge. This was the 218th episode of our weekly therapy session that we call Investing in Bizarro World. Nick, send us off with some words of wisdom, sir.
No words of wisdom. Have a good week out there, everybody.
Hey there, you independent-minded investor. If you like this video, make sure to tell us so by clicking the like button below. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another one. And share it with everyone you know on social media. You can also click the link in the description below to check out more information-packed videos just like this one. Thanks for watching.